right, as you can see here, I've got some wedges here. So what today we're going to do is go over squatting with wedges. I'm going to stay away from the extreme periphery, right? Squatting with a wedge as a bodybuilder. There's really not much of a periphery with powerlifting. So I'm going to stay away from the fringe squatting, okay, from the bodybuilding side with the wedge. Keep this really, really simple as I can at least, okay? Why would somebody want to do this? The disclaimer for this, if you have and know that you have or been diagnosed, or your point is if you have tight ankles, this is going to be very difficult to do. Let me rephrase that. This will be easier to do, but again, a lot of times from squatting and certain things, we want to improve our ankle mobility. This is not that, okay? What you're going to get out of this is a little bit more knee flexion and more hip extension, okay? So just kind of bear with me for a minute here. So let's just imagine for a second that instead of a wedge, I've got like some 5-pound plates that would slide on a barbell, okay? And you see that a lot in gyms. You see right here, you see the heels elevated, but my toes are not, okay? So that pitch of that angle is, in fact, very different than pitching my entire feet, okay? This right here, okay, because again, if you think about running, sprinting, those sort of things, squatting for that matter, we want as much surface area as possible on the ground. So instead of just lifting my heels and shifting that center of mass, I'm going to tilt my entire footbed and shift that center of mass, okay? Because again, if I have tight ankles, my ankles are going to want to raise when I squat very deeply, okay? So essentially, we're making up for that. So I've raised my entire feet and higher at the heel, so as I squat, I can maintain vertical torso position. So what we're looking at here is I raise and pitch my entire footbed, I'm able to keep a much vertical torso as I go through this, right? And in doing so, I'm getting more hip flexion, more knee flexion, but I'm not getting nearly as much ankle flexion. I'm getting actually pretty neutral, maybe actually a little bit of ankle extension, right? So that's what we're doing is, changing the position helps one place and may hinder another. So like when I squat with a wedge, I'll come on and off the wedge to make sure that I'm not just squatting, right, in this position, that my ankles aren't also getting some mobility work. So we'll do a quick demonstration, right, because what I want you to see is, right, from a normal squat, right, we don't want to be anteriorly pelvically tilted, right, which this, because we start with a glute squeeze on this, otherwise we want to collapse. This almost will allow you, or helps you get in a better starting position, i.e. neutral lumbar spine instead of here, okay? So again, with a hip tilt from the squat, as I'm nice and tight here, I drive my hips back to engage my hamstrings so I can descend and ascend vertically, okay? So I won't have to hinge quite as much because of my center of gravity. So I might hinge a little bit, right? But I always say if I had a wall behind me and in front of me, I want to slide down that wall without banging off of it, okay? I want to be vertical as possible with a real good glute squeeze. Also with this is angle change, right? Make a little bit back here a lot of times. I can be more vertical in my torso, which allows for a more vertical forearm position, okay? So jumping in here real quick to kind of give you an idea, right? And this is actually the expectation of the speed in which I think you should execute these movements, or just the squat in general, for the most part, as far as tempo. So I'm going to get on this thing, so my entire feet are on this guy right here, okay? Same as usual, big deep breath, down into my pelvis, I contract, elbows down by my rib cage, slight hip hinge, because I don't have to quite as much because of this guy, straight down, straight up, squeeze my butt cheeks, brace, good, up and down, one more breath, brace, hinge, down the wall, the imaginary wall, up the imaginary wall, squeeze the glutes, and off we go, okay? So folks, Right here, we have different angles, different things. We don't have to have a severe angle. All we're really trying to do is create more tension in the quads, a little bit more in the hips. But again, you don't see me squatting a ton of weight, those sort of things, but give these things a try. But when you use these modalities, we're not forgetting about movement quality. When you start adding modalities like this wedge, I've said it a million times, movement matters most. But if you're going to use a wedge, it's about the only thing that matters, because if your movement isn't quality, you actually do probably run a real risk of screwing up some places you don't want to. So here is squatting with a wedge, and we'll do this again.